What's up, levelers? Welcome back to another lit episode of High Level Chronicles. I'm your host, Chris, joined always by my co-host, Brian. What's up, bro?
What's up?
Oh, man, today's episode, if you're not watching on YouTube, we have a very special guest, Matthew Brockmeyer, an award-winning horror writer, cannabis farmer from Humboldt County, of course. Come on, man. And co-host of the Murder Coaster podcast. We're going to be diving deep into the intersection of cannabis culture, entertainment, the impact on legalization, his murder podcast. We're just going to dig into shit with him. But first, as always, let's kick things off with our leveled up segment. Brian, I'm looking at you first this week. What do you see over there on Discord right now?
All right. Timothy G says, "What's up, bros? I was leveling up on some Fire Diesel and watching 3 Body Problems on Netflix. This shit has me shook."
Dude, 3 Body Problem. I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wonderboy98 said, "Yo, I was leveling up my character on WWE 2K24 and dabbing on some Lemon Haze Crumble."
WWE 2K24. I think it just came out just a few weeks ago, or maybe a month or two ago. Not long. It hasn't been long. Let me say here, I got one last one from our listeners on X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it nowadays. At Games for Days 77 says, "What's up, fellas? I leveled up on some classic Jack and played some COD Mobile." I'm assuming he means Jack Herrera, right? So it sounds like our levelers have been having a good time over the last week. Brian, what have you been leveling up on, man? What are you?
We got some Purple Punch this week. Some nice
Purple
dabs,
Punch.
and of course Rebirth Island. Can't let it go by.
Rebirth dropped this week,
Yes, it did.
This episode will come out next week, but it dropped last week. So Rebirth Island, I actually got caught up in that. I was telling you before our guest came over, anything like I played it for the first time yesterday. Since with everything I have going on with work and everything,
right?
And 2 hours later, I'm like realizing that 2 hours had gone by. Like I was back in Rebirth, like it was just yesterday. So I can feel that.
Get ready, because we're gonna do that tonight.
Yeah. Hey, well, I'm not. I'll tell you, and let me tell you why I'm not doing tonight. I'm a huge wrestling fan, man. It's WrestleMania weekend. That's tonight and tomorrow. I am fucking so ready for this. Me and the wife, that's when we went to the store and shit this morning. We're gonna make
a charcuterie board.
We're making I'm making some buffalo chicken dip.
Okay.
Here after the podcast and everything, we're making some homemade pizzas, like each our own. I'm gonna make a barbecue chicken pizza.
Fancy
shit.
Gonna
make we're just gonna do it, whatever. But as for me, man, I've been enjoying some Warheads, which is a nice fucking indica. Just like one of our listeners, though, the wife and I have been watching 3 Body Problem, and man, that show is fucking wild. We just finished episode 5 or 6 last night, actually. 6, I think. I think there's 2 more episodes left, and dude, it just keeps getting wilder and wilder. And let me tell you something. For anybody that has watched it or might be thinking about watching it, you will hear about episode 5. Episode 5 is brutal. I mean, kids, baby. I mean, it's insane, and it's from the writers.
Check it out.
The writers of Game of Thrones. It's from them.
What is it again?
Okay.
It's called 3 Body Problem on Netflix.
Oh yeah,
and it's by the writer. It's by the people of Game of Thrones. So you can just imagine, if you're a Game of Thrones fan or ever watched Game of Thrones, how brutal some episodes of Game of Thrones
fantasy?
was. It is. So let me tell you. So 3 Body Problem is 3 Body Problem. If you all don't know, it's an old astrophysicist term for when, like, we have the Earth and the Moon, right? That's a 2 body
Right.
2 body problem. When you add any other type of, anything from space, so say Venus or Mars would enter our atmosphere for whatever, and we have a 3 body problem. We're not spinning in the same anymore. So what this show is, it's, without giving too much away, it's alien right there. They found a way to communicate light years away with another planet. Well, we didn't find a way. They found a way to communicate with us. And it's by gaming. That's what makes it so good for this show. It's a headset.
Okay.
It looks like a fucking VR headset. It randomly shows up, and they put it on, and they end up in this world, which is actually their world. But they are slower than us at learning things, right? So they did invent one little thing, which is they call a sophon, which is smaller than a proton, and which is a mini computer that can hold trillions of data, and they sent it to Earth, and it can pick up everything we've done. So they're learning now faster than we are. So they are saying we're coming, but then they realized who the human race really is. that everybody in the human race, and I don't care who you are, we can all admit this, right? You're a liar. We've all lied at some point. And they said, we cannot coexist with liars, so we will not save you anymore. They were helping us. Nobody ever knew they were helping us, keeping people alive, doing stuff this whole time, and now they have nothing to do. So it's like that's where I'm at right now in the show. So I don't know what's going to happen, but dude, it's so fucking wild, and like it is. Yeah, it's like it's a whole nother level of fucking. It's good. You definitely have to watch it. It's definitely something good. And enough about us, though.
Yeah.
Let's welcome our special guest for today, Matthew. Thanks for joining us. I want to jump right. What have you been leveling up on, man? What have you been leveling up on this week?
Let's see. I've been drinking this Keef soda. It's 100 milligrams of THC, and smoking Gush Mint, and watching the Love Has One Cult documentary. Have you seen that? It's like these crazy hippies in Colorado, and they think this woman is God, and she just likes to drink vodka, and it's documentary. It's all true. She eventually, it's on. I think it's on HBO Max. Yeah, it's on HBO Max. Okay.
I just need to know where to look stuff up at.
Her liver starts to fail from drinking so much vodka, so she turns to colloidal silver to help her. And she's a god. She's the god. She is the literal god, and she turns herself blue from that stuff. And then she dies, and then they like haul her corpse around the country, and it slowly mummifies, and they drape her in lights and makeup, and they're putting her on YouTube and stuff, and eventually the cops are called. The whole party comes to an end.
That sounds like an interesting,
pretty wild
thing too. You said, what did you say you were? What you said? Kush mints.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? What do you? Is that flour? Or are you a dab? What is your go-to for?
Lately, my thing has really just been like gummies and sodas, to be honest. But I like vape pens, and I like just plain puffing big old fatties too.
Oh, yeah.
So I can say more than likely. So we'll get into. I mean, fuck it. Let's dive right in. You've been growing weed in Humboldt County, which everybody knows Humboldt County. It's like the Godfather County of weed, to say the least. But you've been doing it for over 25 years, practically since the dawn of medical marijuana. Tell us a bit about how you first got involved in the Humboldt County cannabis scene. Like, what drew you to that world?
Well, I was one of them Grateful Dead heads, and I first came to Humboldt County in 1990 to see Jerry Garcia play in Southern Humboldt on the Eel there, and I was pretty impressed with just the insanity. The hog farm was doing the security, so it was completely lax. I just swam into the show. And there was like naked people everywhere, and 1990 was pretty wild. Everyone's smoking huge fatties,
and so let me interrupt you real quick. How old were you at the time? Because I don't know how
I was like 18, 19.
Okay, so you were just hitting your adult phase. So
yes,
okay,
yes,
gotcha.
Yeah. And from there, I actually lived in Amsterdam for a little bit in the 90s. That's how much I loved weed. I was like, wherever it is, I'm going there. Wow. And then, ended up back in the States, and I was living in Oregon, went to college there, and I just started knowing all these growers somehow in Humboldt, and would come down here and trim and work and help people harvest. And, then me and my wife decided to get our own little farm in 1998. It's when I got my medical first in 98.
So you got it. That property value and everything now is worth.
No, it plummeted again. It went up. Yeah, dude. I got it for like around $150,000. It was 40 acres. It's part of an old hippie commune called Shit Fuck Piss. But I mean, it's completely off grid. It's way down a dirt road. But a beautiful community of all these crazy hippies. Like the elementary school where my kids went to school is just awesome. It was it was built by hippies back in the 70s. They actually show the building of it on that TV show Murder Mountain. It's so funny because they're like
Murder Mountain. I want to talk about that in a little bit.
They say something like. And then the hippies came and built an anarchist compound, and they show them like building my kids' elementary school. I'm like, I'm the gardener there.
Let me ask this real quick. I don't want to get into that show. Yeah, I want to talk about that later. But were you featured in that at all? Were you?
They interviewed me, and I refused to say. They're like, "What makes Humboldt County so evil?" And I'm like, Humboldt County's not evil. I mean, it's. I was like, I don't have a lock. I literally don't even have a lock on my door. You know what I mean? And they didn't want to hear all that. They wanted to hear how bad it was, and I
So where
wasn't
are you
really.
from originally? If
I
you're not
grew
from
up
California,
from where you guys did in Baltimore.
Oh, really?
Okay, so you
Yeah.
from the
Then I went
Maryland
to art
area.
school in New York City, and then dropped out to
Wow.
go on Grateful Dead tour.
And when did you go to Amsterdam?
I went there the first time in like 91, 92, and then in 93 me and this girl I was with got an apartment there for a while.
That's pretty
It was
cool.
pretty
Nice.
cool, yeah.
So this is going to tie into my next kind of segue, so to speak. But fast forward to today and where you were, back when you got into this whole scene, when you were in Amsterdam. I assume, and I've only passed through Amsterdam on flights. I've never like stayed there or been there, but I assume from what we see on TV, you can go into any shop, store, buy pop brownies, magic mushrooms, anything, pretty much, right? That's the way it used to be. Is that how Amsterdam
Well,
was?
you couldn't get mushrooms in the stores when I was
really?
there, but yeah, they were coffee shops.
Yeah.
And you go into the coffee shop, and they had all, buy whatever you want.
Coffee? Did they have coffee?
Oh yeah, it was a literal coffee shop, usually with fresh squeezed orange juice as well. Some of the nicer ones actually had food, which was really fun.
Dude, that just made me come
you
up
could
with a
eat,
new
but they had all
entrepreneurship.
kinds of indoor weed. I mean, back then they didn't have the strains they do today, but I mean, they had a lot of really nice weed.
I could open up a coffee shop called Baked Beans.
Baked beans.
That'd be cool as shit. So what I was getting at, so with you saw in Amsterdam and everything, how has the landscape of California legalization changed since when you first got there? So how is
well,
the
first we
landscape
had
of
the
everything?
medical, the 215, and that was awesome because it was
What
such
year
a
did that take
great.
place?
It was 97.
Okay.
Damn.
So does that mean, so
97.
what was 2016 for California? Is that when it became recreational? Is that what that was?
2016, yeah. 2000,
Okay. I knew 2016 was a big year for California with marijuana, and I couldn't remember. I really thought medical was before then because I remember a buddy of mine having a medical card in like 2011 or 12, so I knew it was there. But so 2016 is when it became recreation. So we'll get to that. But so since then, so keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to take off.
Well, the
the rails
medical
here,
stuff
but...
it was awesome. It was fantastic because it was a complete gray area, and but it took a while to implement. Like the cops would if the cops found you with weed, and you said you showed them your medical card, they would say tell it to the judge, and still arrest you.
Damn.
And then so many people were going before the judge, and the judge was letting them go. My friend got pulled over with 5 pounds on him, and they were really harsh. They took his weed. They were threatening to lock him up, and he actually had like a letter from his lawyer. He had all these patients that he was growing for, and he had like all the list of people, where the pot was going, what clubs it was going to, and he had to fight like hell in court, and it took him years. And they finally gave him his weed back, but it turned yellow. You know what I mean? But
it probably wasn't that good after.
I mean, it was a big deal. Like High Times and stuff wrote an article about it and stuff. Because it was one of the first times that they're just giving not a huge amount, but a rather large amount, 5 pounds of weed back to a person.
So when medical came into effect in California, was there limits on how much you could possess or anything?
Dude, the law
was
so vague. Here's what it said.
Because you all were like,
you can have cannabis with a doctor's recommendation. Now, is that recommendation oral? You know what I mean? Like, say you're playing golf with a doctor, and a doctor's like, no, I recommend you try weed. That's a doctor's recommendation. It doesn't say prescription, written, this, that.
So how did you get a card back then? What was there any like
it's
steps?
Hilarious, dude. Yeah. The only doctors who did it were either cannabis advocates, which was cool, or just shady motherfuckers. And like I would get a call from my doctor who was actually like in Clear Lake, like far away, a couple like 100 miles away or more, and he'd be like, "I'm coming to Humboldt. Meet me in the parking lot of Shop Smart in Redway." So I would pull in there at the right time, and I'd be waiting, and then an RV would pull in, and then like 100 people would get out of their cars and cruise up to this RV, and then you'd go up into the RV, and he would give you like a blood pressure thing, and then just be like, "What's wrong?" And he'd be like, "Whatever, just tell him whatever you want," and he'd write you a script, and now next one. This is the line, and I've met doctors in shady hotel rooms, all kinds of places.
That's crazy because you can see how like California, and I'm just going off of Maryland here because that's all I know really, has set a precedence in how states have used how everything's changed to today. Because in Maryland, getting a medical card was you got online and found a doctor, and just literally you could get it the same day. Like it was just like you
Within
didn't
an
even
hour.
meet them, like you just met online, like through this, like Zoom or whatever. And it was like, "What's your issues?" Okay, yep. And then there, but there's a
Shit, I didn't even go through Zoom. Mine was just a phone call because my camera wouldn't work.
Nice,
so
nice.
you didn't even have to meet up. So you're just saying it's still the same. I mean, who knows? I don't
California
even think
should have been ahead of the
doctors.
game, and they should have been. If California had been the first to legalize recreationally, I think a lot of the laws would be different. But because it was Colorado and Washington, California ended up following their leads and their examples instead of setting our own. And a lot of people disagree with the way the laws are, and it's sad that we let that slip away from us, and let Colorado go first.
So have you, like you say, there's been a talk about, the legalization, in California and Humboldt County. Have you seen a positive economic shift with the legalization?
No, the exact opposite.
Really?
Terrible, yeah. So with the medical, it was like just a free, there was no restrictions. There was no nothing that you could just, it was a free for all. It was wild. And then as soon as they legalized it for recreation, they cracked down on all the medical growers like hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
They used satellites and drones to find you. And like we got busted for growing before we went legal. We still had all our medical, but then they lowered the medical down to a tiny amount. Because before it had been like you could grow 1,000 plants or something medical, and it was like there was no limit. And so all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we're making the medical limit teeny, tiny, like 10 by 10, like 10 foot by 10 foot. Like what the fuck?" And
wait, you mean they went by square feet instead of by plants?
Yeah, they go by square feet. Same with the normal legalization too. It's all square feet.
How does that even? I don't even know how that would work. Right? That's crazy.
Well, it's the size of your grow room or your greenhouse, and then you as a grower, I mean, it's if you know how to efficiently use space, you know what I mean. You can get more or less.
I'm just sitting there thinking, like, if they tell you only got 10 by, like, scrog it out. I mean, you can really spread it out. But like here in Maryland, it's what, 4 plants if you're medical, 2 plants if you're not medical, like. And then they don't even, and like you're saying, the laws are so, like, what do they consider a plant? Is that one in flower? Is it, because I mean,
yeah,
it's not a plant. It's hemp before then, right? I mean, according to the 2018 Farm Bill, a cannabis plant is hemp until it sparks, until you light it. That's the only time THCA, the 3% goes over that 0.3%. It can't go over that. So everything is hemp according to that Farm Bill. So that's the issue we have in Maryland. 2 plants recreational, 4 plants medical. What considers a plant? Right. Can you have 50 seedlings, in vegetative, not flip? I mean, about growing, you don't have to flip a light schedule for growing indoors or whatever, because Maryland even has it to where, here's how vague the law is: if a plant can be seen from your private property, it has to be out of sight, or else it's illegal. Like, how does that even work? You know what I mean? Like, right. It's so
they differentiate between flowering and vegetative.
See, they don't do that here at all. It's just a plant. That's all they can say. A cannabis plant. They don't, and
But you get busted from a satellite image.
They've done it. So here's the thing: they've done that here, but with drones. They busted people in their own house by flying over and saying, "Oh,"
and they don't even come to the property. You get a letter in the mail.
Yep,
it's fucking bullshit. Yeah, how can they do that?
And what's the point? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I get it.
The point was to drive the price up, which it did for a hot second.
You all have really low pricing though now, right?
The pricing, it's fucked. It's fucked, man. It's about $300 for a pound of really nice weed. Yeah. And so, like, there's really a difficult
for medical. Like, literally an ounce of legit.
Well, that's not at the store. This is for like the farmers and on the street.
Okay, I can go to a plug. We'll just say I'll go to a plug.
I think they're selling ounces for like $25 at some of the stores here.
Now, fuck that. Even our plugs are selling ounces for $150, $200, right? I mean, if you're lucky, you might get it less than $200. And that's for an ounce. I mean, come on, that is insane. Like that, but that's
now the whole, like, southern Humboldt, where Garberville, Redway, the towns are completely deserted. The stores are boarded up. The movie theater is just moldering and rotting away. All the old timers have either moved away, moved to Oregon, or a lot of the really legendary people have unfortunately passed on. And it's just a completely different scene. Like when I would first pull up there would be like dreadies everywhere, VW buses, and now it's like kind of meth heads, and yeah, it's really.
So when you say
up.
the pricing is kind of fucked, what is? Can you give us a little background on, and maybe for our levelers out there listening, like what made that happen? Like, because eventually we're going to you can look at California, you can look at Utah, you can look at all these states that have legalized recreational, and eventually you say fucked, and I don't know if you mean fucked as in, this is where I'm trying to understand and help everybody else. Like they're really low. It's really like you're really not making a lot of money off of it out there. But
right.
here
it's like impossible to make any money.
It's outrageous. So, but people say we'll eventually get to that point to where we can get pounds for $300. But so what made that? So I just want to get like from your perspective, what changed in the economy to make it like that? Is it just the oversaturation of people? Yeah. Okay, so that's
I mean, it's just you're living in a place where everybody grows weed. You know what I mean? Everybody's been doing it forever, and most of the stuff was imported out. And now all the states, like you guys are legal now, and all these places are legal now, and we can't really. There's just no market for it anymore. You know?
Yeah, I know a lot of not a lot, but some of California like companies have reached Maryland, but it's a lot different priced.
And there's still technical issues with it crossing state lines that they're working on figuring that out. But at this point, I don't think that's legal at all. It's not.
I did see Brian, and this is free. I mean, you're probably Matthew's probably gonna look at us like y'all are fucking serious right now. You're worried about that, but we're getting Khalifa Kush for the first time ever right now. Like it is now coming to just like Sweet Buds here in Frederick, and so. I mean, that's been huge because we've heard about it for so long. We hear about all this California stuff, right? It's media, but it's people too. Like I'll look at a lot of Reddit, right? Because that's where I can real people talking about stuff, and they talk about how good some stuff is in California, but how it is an oversaturated market, and whatever. But I just get excited when we get some new things like Khalifa Kush, or some of these what I want to say classically known in that people have had out there and been smoking for a while. We don't get that opportunity.
I can't even keep up, man. I can't even keep up.
But even then, see, the problem is your all's laws and THC percentages, whatever, for medical and this is completely different than Maryland's. Like they are capped at certain things. So the same
they
stuff
cap the amount of THC weed can have.
Yes.
What?
For medical and recreation, there's caps.
Even Virginia right now is like
that's
the worst.
Crazy to me.
Virginia's horrible.
West Virginia is like 10%. It can't be over 10% THC, or they're not allowed to sell it. Like it's so fucking wild.
What? Why?
Yes,
that doesn't make any sense to me. That's what you want. You know what I mean? Like, why would you want people to have to smoke more or eat more? You would want the maximum amount. It doesn't make any sense.
More, spend more money.
Buy more because you have to get more. Where you can buy, But even then, it doesn't matter, dude.
That's ridiculous.
I'm sure California is the same. And I can go to a dispensary, right? Which when medical came in, it was great. Don't get me wrong. Medical was great for people. Brian, everybody has their stories with medical and how it's changed our lives. But the percentages are so fucking inflated on these things that you can get online and it says 30% THC and has 4% terps, right? Motherfucker, you get that smoke, it tastes like ass and hay and has no flavor. I mean, there ain't no way they're just inflating these numbers. They're picking and choosing. So I don't. It's even not coming from a laboratory anymore. It is. But
it says it is, but
they're like finding the choicest thing and then giving it to the laboratory, and then
they find the best one out of So you have a farm
because each plant's going to be different.
Exactly.
Each plant's totally different. Yeah.
They test every single plant and take the highest one, right?
Unless it's a clone, which is obviously genetically the same. But if it's
and that's a lot of times what they're doing. They're cloning and just using generic results. And it's just not the same. So that's what I'm saying. You can't even go by that anymore. So the pricing here is, I already said it's outrageous for pricing, but
it's crazy.
It's just wild. But now people are growing their own. So I own a company that sells grow supplies and stuff, and it's because a lot of people are growing more.
Remember when that was illegal?
It's busy. Yeah, right. Yeah, it used to be. You just found they used to fly over houses and look for heat, thermal imaging to look
or just
for
go
the
to
heat
like someone would set up a store and be selling lights, and they would come and bust the owner of the store.
Right. See, and like we can sell seeds here, but again, seeds are so what that, but they won't tell us what a plant is. What it's
Right.
just so weird. But even the law is just nationwide. I'll just say nationwide. It's been hard for me. I don't sell with my company. It's seed to harvest, right? So I'm just selling grow supplies, lights, tents. Indoor mostly soils, nutrients. I sell seeds too, which is nothing, right? So seeds are just seeds. They're perfectly legal. Even the government says they're legal, right? You can buy them, ship them, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, yep.
I can't process credit cards from my bank, from no bank, because they consider it cannabis. The banks still consider it all cannabis. I'm going off track here a little bit, but I'm just saying, I'm talking about in general, just how.
Well, you're smart,
fucked. We're all fucked. You know what I mean? Like we're all everything's fucked by the government with these putting limits, putting the the THC limits on what you can get, the growing limits on what you can do. Either fucking legalize it to me or not legalize. Like, don't worry about how much they have. Just fucking do it or not do it. Like
it's because they want to control us.
It's that simple.
They got to have that little tiny bit of control on everything that goes on.
So let me ask you this, man. We're gonna get into some because I'm learning from you a little bit of how Maryland might shape out to be, but. What have they done out there as far as in California? Like, you have drunk driving, DUIs and stuff, but do they have any testing for like cannabis and driving?
Apparently they do. But I'm not familiar with how it works. I know the other day I ate a handful of gummies, got completely paranoid, and I'm driving down the road and my friend was smoking a vape pen. And I was like, dude, come on, man, I'm really stoned. Don't smoke in the car. I can get in trouble. And he started just laughing at me and telling me I was a fucking idiot and refused to stop. And I'm like, what if I get pulled over? Do you? And he's like, dude, shut up. So I don't really know. I do know that they can test you. I think there's a breathalyzer they can actually give you, isn't there? Some sort of thing like
that's
that.
What I'm saying. Maryland has been talking about trying. They are right now still trying to come up with some type of testing program, and they mentioned that they are working on a machine that could be like a breathalyzer. But the problem with that is, as everybody knows, and here's where they're getting kind of limited and cut off is if you drink alcohol, right? Once it's out of your system, it's not going to register on the breathalyzer. Cannabis, THC, that can stay in your system for days, weeks. You know what I mean? So they can't refrigerate.
Right.
Did you take those edibles last night?
And what if you have a medical card? Then it's completely different. It's not recreational. It's fucking medical.
Right.
And I drive better stoned.
A lot of people say that. That's what I'm saying. But so that's why they don't have any legal sense as far as testing yet, because THC can stay in your system for days, especially if you're a daily user, right? It's going to take months to get out of your system.
I think as of right now, though, it's still considered a DUI.
It is.
Lawyers are going to make money. They're going to do it.
So, yeah, but it's interesting to say the least. I'm interested to hear your take. What you meant by I'm trying to in your bio you sent us. You mentioned death of the outlaw hippie culture.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
So what do you mean by it? What is?
Well, I mean, exactly? Some of my neighbors were the people who went to Afghanistan and India and brought back the first the first indica strains, and were the first people to experiment with crossing indicas with sativas, getting sativas from Mexico and Thailand and crossing them with Kush strains from Afghanistan, and that's right there where my farm is. And it was a completely outlaw culture, and it was a beautiful culture. We had reggae on the river. If you ever heard of that, it was really huge cultural phenomenon.
I've heard of reggae on the river.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I didn't know exactly where it was, but I have heard of it. So
Southern Humboldt, yeah. And like I said, they would have Jerry Garcia play out there, and there's this place called the Mateel Center, community center, and there's just this thriving community, and it also gave artists, musicians, writers a means of survival while they practice their art. You meet so many amazing painters and like musicians, especially just amazing musicians who were able to like dedicate themselves to their craft while they grew weed and lived in this outlaw culture. And that's sadly like gone. All these freaks have no way of living. Yeah.
So see, that's the only downfall I can see to legalization. I mean, I don't know. It's such a great it's
a good thing in the end, but
it is, and it's what I mean. It's just like
a speed bump.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved being able to be like, yeah, I don't follow the law. Yeah, I'm an outlaw. Yeah, but what I do is amazing, and I help people, and I'm bringing this beautiful product out. You know what I mean? It was cool because It's not like you're a fentanyl dealer. So, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
you were actually helping society, and like you could be like, I'm a fucking freedom fighter.
And with something that I say with
gone.
everything, it's something that's all natural. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
It's not synthetic. You're not mixing chemical. You're not doing anything. It's something. It's a fucking seed you throw in the ground and water it, and you get these benefits out of it. Whether people think it's the classic stoner or whatever, but most, I will say almost everybody I know does it for some type of medical reason.
Oh yeah.
Not just, I'm just going to get high. Now, there are people like that. I mean, we talk about this all the time. There's those people, but almost everybody I know does it for some type of medical benefit, whether it's anxiety,
even days
pain, inflammation.
I'm hoping
days myself, I just like to get stoned. Like,
right? And that's like a weekend for me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big drinker. I hardly ever drink. Like, I hardly ever drink alcohol anymore. But to me, that's my weekend. You know what I mean? My Friday and Saturday, because I'm a Monday through Friday worker. You know, but so my Friday and Saturday is, I'm taking my edibles. I'm taking, like last night, dude, I took it was 100 milligram Fico capsule. Where that shit fucked me up. Like I
100 milligrams? Yeah, dude.
And it fucked me. And I don't know, you can't really half it. You know what I mean? It's in a capsule, so what the fuck do you do?
Yeah.
And I actually got to the point last night, I don't know if y'all have ever had this or not, or even know it, but I got cannabis shakes. Have you ever had that?
Yep.
Like you have too much THC in your body, like just uncontrolled. You can't control it. It just fucking. You just start saying that. Weird, that hit me last night.
When that happens to me, I have to lay down and like rub my feet together like a fucking cricket.
Dude, that's what I do.
It's the only thing that like calms me down.
Like, but I was already laying back. So like last night, right? We were watching Three Body Problem. I had taken that Fico capsule at like 7:00, right? Thinking, given it has to digest, I've learned most about this just by, but it'd probably go take an hour and a half to 2 hours to start kicking in for me. So I'm like, perfect timing. Cause Brian, I usually sit down with the wife around 10:00 at night, our time. And that's when we chill out for the evening. Right. So I'm like, it'll hit just the right time, for me to watch Three Body Problem, already fucked up show. And it did. And I felt great, but I got halfway through the episode, I started getting it, and that's the only thing it did. I was already laying back in the recliner, our couch reclined. So, but just moving my legs around. But the problem is I have a fucking French bulldog that lays in between my legs 90% of the time. So he's there. So I had to figure out another way. And my wife, last night she's probably sitting there looking at me thinking like, is he on crack or something? Because I'm fucking, moving around so much. But yeah, I get that. Like that hit me last night with those capsules. So speaking
100 milligrams is a nice dose.
Yeah.
See, I didn't think it would do, I took one before and it didn't do much, but it could, again, it's based on what you eat every day and things like maybe it's a digestive just hit me differently, but
see, I don't know, dude. I handle like 10, 20 milligrams at a time is enough for me.
See, well, for me, and don't ask me why, but it takes at least 40 milligrams of edibles for me to feel anything.
That's insane, bro.
And I think it's just my body.
I think you need to try mine, bro.
Maybe because so again, I only buy them from the dispensary because that's the only place. I've tried making back. So I only go off of what their numbers say. So they might not even.
Are they distillate or are they like?
No, I'm talking gummies, like full.
Yeah, but are they? If the THC,
that's
that can make a difference how it was broke down.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's only like 1 or 2 companies here in Maryland that use distillate for their edibles right now.
Is it? So
I think so. Yeah.
This was rosin.
Yeah, the rest of it's
live rosin.
The ones that I got are those the high color or whatever. You know what I mean? The one Brian, the high color brand or whatever it is. That's what 40 milligram.
Yeah.
And it's been like that with all of them, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, but it's also very
every person's cannabinoid system is completely different. I took a class. They were dealing with epileptic children. And when I say epileptic, I'm not like talking having a seizure every once in a while. These kids were like in wheelchairs having seizures like every hour and shit. It was hardcore. These are people that moved to California because their children needed to get cannabis and they couldn't get it where they were. And it was amazing how the slightest differentiation between THC and CBD would affect each patient completely differently. And the whole class was on like testing oils and trying to like get all these different levels and then testing them on each person and finding out which combination and level worked for that person's cannabinoid system.
Wow. See, so that's just crazy shit because I understand it because me, my wife can take a quarter of an edible that I take and she's fucking dumb for, you know what I mean?
Zooted.
Where I can take one and I'm like, I don't fucking feel anything. I got to take another one and then it'll hit me, but it's It's crazy how
Yeah,
different
40 does me pretty good. If I do
Yeah.
100, I'm pretty fucking. I get like cotton mouth and I can't talk and stuff.
Yep. Fucking. You're sweating some.
There's one place that I can get that I do get edibles from. That's not the dispensary. It's a farmer or a farm company, right? Brian knows what I'm talking about. They're 150 milligrams each. They're the like peach rings and apple rings. You know what I'm talking about? Like you would have the gummies, those, and each one is 150 milligram. I can eat a whole one of those, and it's like I'm fine. But 100 milligram Fico capsule last night fucked me up and had me, shake it. So, but I do know I can almost tell that that they're using that, and I'm saying SHF here. Their gummies. I think he's putting tincture on real gummy, like he's buying the gummies. You know what I mean?
Okay,
and
just the oil
and putting
on it,
the tincture on it so it absorbs it. And I think that's just because I make tinctures, so I know the flavor of a tincture when you're using that.
A little taste of it.
And that's exactly what these have. You know what I mean? So, and they're inconsistent. Then that tells me that it's being dripped, and you don't know which part you eat. You know what I mean?
That's kind of weird.
I gotta bring you some out of mine, and I want to see how they feel for you.
I'm all for it.
Anyway, I have a lot of people that tell me like
you say that. I'm all for. I'm all for trying. Whatever. It's the same thing with. I mean, we're talking about cannabis, right? But it's the same thing with psilocybin mushrooms, man. The littlest bit can do one thing to one person, and the next person, it's way too much for. It's all the same. So everybody's body's your DNA, your genes, your hormones, everything. I guess everything has to do with it. So,
well, no, just that you have a cannabinoid system at all is amazing because a lot of animals don't have it. Like ducks, birds, it does no effect on them whatsoever. We had these geese, and we used to make water hash, and we would be dumping the empty trash cans out, and would like make huge, monstrous puddles of weed water, and they would swim in it and bathe in it, and they loved it, and it has no effect on them. Obviously, dogs have a cannabinoid system.
Yeah, they do.
And they all get fucked up. But a lot of animals, and scientists still don't even understand why we have it. Why is our bodies wired that cannabis gets us high? Like what function is it? It's a mystery still.
My dog, speaking of dogs, I have 3 dogs. I have a German Shepherd, a Golden Retriever, and a French Bulldog. So, large, semi-medium, large, whatever, and then a little tiny dog. And Negan and Baxter, Negan is my my German Shepherd. He's solid black, and I named him Negan off of Walking Dead. If you watch Walking Dead, he takes everything. It's all his shit. It don't matter. That's his shit. Don't touch his shit. And Baxter's just off of it. He's but Winston, the little Frenchie, man, he is a joint thief. If you leave a joint sitting out and you move away, that motherfucker grabs it and is gone. Like he will eat it in an instant. The other 2 don't give 2 shits about cannabis. Winston, I feel like he's addicted to it, and that's probably because he sits on my lap most nights, and when I'm smoking, it kind of probably hits him. But he sees a joint, you better keep an eye on it. He'll watch it, and he'll just take off running with it and eat it. He loves that shit. So,
be so mad.
You mentioned earlier about that Netflix series Murder Mountain. That show, it paints a pretty dark picture of Humboldt County.
Yes.
It also highlights some of the challenges the area faces. So you being right there in smack dab, do you think, does that show, I want you to talk about the show, but also tell me, does it accurately represent the overall experience of living and working there? Like
for some people, unfortunately.
And then a follow-up question to that too, after all this, because this is going to lead to the next, is did that particular series, because that came out 2017 or so, 18 maybe, that series, did that have any influence on your podcast?
2018.
Because you got right.
Well,
so
one thing you got to remember, Humboldt County is monstrous. It's like the size of Connecticut.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't realize it's like larger than a lot of states on the East Coast. So it's vast. It's like, you can go to this college town, Arcata, and it's just like a hippie college town. Then you go down to southern Humboldt, and you're very rural. It's the redwoods. It's extremely isolated, these hills and stuff. But on the west side of the highway, it's more or less more hippie-ish. There's like a lot of hippies out there, like old communes, and like the sound man from the Grateful Dead started the radio station there, and he also started a senior center there, and he also crowns the rodeo queen. So it's like just a very, the Grateful Dead, like this whole culture is like a big part of it down there in a way. But then the east side of the highway, when you get up onto the east side, it's like all cattle ranchers, and it's just very, very redneck. And that's where that takes place. Outside of a town called Alder Point, where I actually lived in Alder Point. But that takes place on just right next to Alder Point there. And it is a kind of scary-ish out there. It's just not as kind and loving as some other parts, and it's just a lot of meth, a lot of methamphetamine, a lot just locals that are rednecky and very tight-knit and a closed kind of community.
That makes me think
it's more or less an accurate representation of a very small part of Humboldt County. But even that representation is exploited, and you know what I mean? There's murders everywhere. You go to any big city, you know what I mean? There's fucked up shit wherever you go. You're not going to go anywhere where there's not fucked up shit. So I would say that even in the most fucked up part of Humboldt, they still painted it darker than they needed to, than it really is. But and it's entertainment, man. That's what people want. That's what they gave them, and I'm not gonna like diss them. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to sell a product. That's what you do. Yeah, that's what people want.
And
for sure.
The after question was: did that have any influence on your podcast, or was your podcast started before this?
My podcast came out after this.
Okay.
We're pretty new to the whole podcasting world, but I did have a novel out that was almost kind of loosely based on those events in a weird way, and takes place near there. And it didn't really have any effect on it. It was interesting though, because I wrote my book before that Netflix series came out, and like a lot of people hadn't heard of the darker side of things. My novel Kind Nepenthe is more about people losing their ideals when they get into the money scene of things. It's like these dreadlocked hippie vegetarians that are like, they love fish and go to see fish shows, and they get this opportunity to work on this pot farm, and they think it's going to be a hippie paradise and they're going to be all organic and stuff. And they get up there and it's this rundown indoor running on a diesel generator, and there's diesel spilling everywhere, and they got spider mites, so they got to cover everything in like the most awful pesticides, and it's just like poison. And then they're just like, they just turn where all they want is the money, and it's just about the money. And then there's like ghosts, which are like metaphors for the past, coming back to haunt them, and it turns into like a full-on horror bloodbath at the end, you know.
That's awesome. I'm curious. So switching gears here, as we're already at 40-some minutes in, but I'm curious to hear more about your creative endeavors, like your writing and your podcast. What got you started down that path with like writing and everything?
I'm a reader. I've always like just read ever since I was just a little kid. I love books. I love literature. So naturally I fell into writing, and just like a write. It's like a calling. Like I have to write. And now, like I was telling you earlier before we started, our podcast is mostly scripted. So like I'm writing like 8,000 to 10,000 words a week just for the podcast. It's like a calling. I just love to write, and I'm a creative. I love to be creative, and
yeah, it's like because you said you went to school in New York for arts, right? So that's what.
Yeah.
So you've been your whole. So since you were young, have just been a creative type of personality and person that,
Totally. And I'm a true crime podcast fanatic. Like I just love listening to true crime nonstop. It's like my thing.
So it's I'm not even gonna get into. We're not near the light. We're not going to hit the lightning level yet. But what's been your favorite, or what's been your most I don't even know the right word I want to use here. I'm fucking high, but stand outish true crime event that's happened. Like what's your most intriguing one that you can think of?
Like personally,
for like stand out? Yeah, like for you,
around
like
me.
for you.
All right, so like
for you, like what one stands out? People love true crime, and there's always usually people really have one that stands out that they really like think of, that really got them into
I'm
true
obsessed
crime,
with the Manson family.
Okay,
as like a person who was like a hippie and like lived on like communes and like been a big part of like the hippie culture. I think it's just a great summation of everything that's wrong with it. How people will use like the word family, the word love to manipulate you, to get you to do things you don't want to do. and also like where you see these people come into this with these morals and ethics, and they quickly fade. Like I was saying about my novel, I think that's a great. But for me personally, there was this guy I knew that I used to do business with. Murdered somebody like just a mile away from my house and buried him under their water tank. That was pretty crazy.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
He was all methed out. Oh, dude, they were so methed out. He became convinced that these people were robbing him. I don't even think he was getting robbed, and saw this van broke down on the side of the road and took the guy at gunpoint, and then like took him back to his cabin. He slit his throat, but it didn't kill him. It just put a big hole. He didn't hit the carotid arteries.
The carotid artery.
Right.
Yeah, and so they just wrapped it up in a dirty T-shirt and duct tape, and then he took him to a party where everyone was smoking meth and eating tacos, and they chased some UFOs around with assault rifles, and then he brought the guy back to his dad's homestead, put him in an bathtub in an outbuilding, and shot him through the head with an AK. And then and I was like, this dude I know, and then
this
he had
sounds
an
like
accomplice
a
with him.
Netflix movie.
I know, right? And these are like people. These are like people I know. You know, what I mean, that I did business with. You're like, holy fuck, dude, are you fucking kidding me? And during the trial, like, 'cause it all came out. Like they buried him. Like, he's like parading this guy around, bringing him to parties. Like the whole community saw.
It's like a weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, right, right. And the one guy was so fucking high on meth, still in psychosis. Like he, after being in jail for weeks or months, when he got up on the trial, on the stand to testify, he was saying crazy stuff. Like the cops had seen him do it. That inside this homestead was a torture chamber with all these beds covered in bone and blood, and there was a battery hooked up to cables with a human finger in it, and he had a contraption that would chop up bodies and feed them into a wood stove, which was all product of his imagination. He was just fucking out of it on meth, you know?
That's wild.
So it wasn't a weekend at Bernie's, it was a weekend in Humboldt.
Just Southern Humboldt. Yeah,
look, we already have a name for the Netflix here. Netflix, pick us up. Look, he can give you. We got a writer. He can write it for you right here. So,
dude, I got asked to write a TV show for Netflix and wrote the fucking. But well, it wasn't for. It was Netflix was one of the maybe buyers. It was like for an agent, and I wrote the most badass fucking story with all these other really good writers, and they turned it down because they said it was too much like that TV show Ozark. It's nothing Ozark like the TV amazing. Show Ozark. That show's stupid.
Ozark
They're growing
amazing.
opium. Give me a fucking break. Well, I mean, I liked it. Don't get me wrong, but
Ozark was
growing
really
opium. You know how many people you would need to harvest that much opium? You know, you would need a fucking army. So in Afghanistan? They've got like huge villages that have nothing to do all day but sit out there and harvest the shit. You know, it's very.
Do you like comics or anything like that too? Like that kind of stuff?
I'm not like a comic.
So Ozark. Julia Garner from Ozark. Did you see she just got cast as the female Silver Surfer in the new
didn't know that.
new movie coming out? Julia Garner's amazing, dude, in Ozark even. I mean, she is an amazing actress. Yeah. So, yeah, she got cast as the new Silver Surfer. So, I'm interested in it. That's the reason I asked, because, it's kind of, Ozark. Have you watched Ozark, Brian?
Yeah, well, something here and there. I haven't sat down and watched it all the way through.
I like it. Ozark was
I watched some episodes.
Well, my story was nothing like
it. Nothing like it.
Money laundering? It wasn't about money laundering?
No, it wasn't about money laundering. It was about a family who had been like I was going to say to you, you're smart. What you're doing is selling supplies. And in the gold rush, the people who got rich were like Levi Strauss selling pants, hardware stores selling axes. It wasn't the gold miners themselves who became rich. It was the people giving them products that they needed who developed empires. So it's like you see this a lot in Southern Humboldt is like these little hardware stores or little grow shops or little, gardening centers. So it was like a family who had built one of those, because some of them are way out in the middle of the woods. Like there's nothing. You're just driving through the woods, and all of a sudden you come on this huge compound and there's like a lumber mill, a fucking huge hardware store, coffee shop, and it's like this epic thing. And now a lot of them have, cannabis stores. So in ours, it was like a family who had started this garden store. They were growers, of course, and they started a garden store in the middle of the woods, and it became this huge thing. And then when pot went legal, they went legal, and they have some legal farms. They've got a distillation plant there now at the thing where they can
Nice.
make oils and shatter and stuff. And it was like their dealings with people still trying to be in the underground market, but still trying to go legal, and like, you know what I mean? All the drama that you would see in real life in Humboldt County. And it wasn't like people growing opium and trying to launder money. It was like, which is fine, but it's still fantastical in a lot of ways. It was very gritty, real life situations, you know, and like murders, like the one I just described that happened, you know.
And you said you wrote this. You wrote a script for that to be pitched.
Yes, with
You ever thought about
another
turning it-
amazing writer. But
Did you ever think about turning it into a book?
yeah. I got so many books I'm goddamn working on now.
bet.
Get in line, get in the list.
Brian, you got any other book questions or anything for him?
I mean, I guess a common question: how does getting elevated help with writing, the writing process?
Oh, it's great. It's fantastic. You know,
Does it play a key part at all? Does it
for
help?
me it does.
Does it really does?
I mean,
help with
cannabis is a
creativity?
part of my daily life. It's just who I am. But I think,
you more of a
man, I eat a
sativa
couple
smoker,
gummies
or-
and just look up and like 6 hours have gone by.
So let me
Okay.
ask this. I got a question about writing because I'm completely ignorant to write because I'm not a writer. You know what I mean? Except for podcast stuff, but which I guess is writing a little bit. But when you said like the Netflix, like when you said you were approached, well, along with some other writers to do it, how does that even work? Because I've always wondered, like when you see movies and script, you know, TV shows and stuff, it's multiple writers, or you know, they say in a write like. Does it just start with like one person saying, I'll do this part and you do this part? Or is it like you all are just writing a whole script and then you're throwing it at somebody else and they're saying, well, let me do this with it and throwing it back, and you all are just about, how does that work with when you have multiple writers on one thing?
Well, for this project, what happened was I got an email, and these people were like, "We read your book. We really loved it. We know that you're. We've studied you. We checked out all your things, and we know that you're a grower in Humboldt. You know all these people, and we're interested in writing a TV show." And it was a producer and then another writer, and then they basically threw it all on me, and I would just like send off stuff. I'm not sure how it works with other projects. And then we would have like conferences and talk about it, and they would read what I had, and you know, change this, change that, blah blah blah. But it was really mostly me doing most of the hard work in this situation. I'm not sure how it works in other situations, but yeah.
Yeah, I just know, like, I see, I mean, I think almost
Well,
everything
the one guy I was
nowadays-
working with had written for Deadwood and Sons of Anarchy. So
Oh, wow. Dude, Sons of
That's
Anarchy,
pretty cool.
that reminds me, you all Sons of Anarchy fans?
yeah.
Did you watch the
A
Mayans
little bit.
series? Anybody watch the
I watched some
Mayans?
of it.
The
I'll
Mayan
watch some
series?
of it again.
So the Mayan series was, you know, the spinoff of
Oh, yeah,
that, but
yeah.
and it was still part of California, but they had what they called Meth Mountain. And when you were describing the redneck part of Humboldt, that's what I was picturing was Meth Mountain, because that's where they, you know, trailers and just like just people just on meth and selling meth, like that's all they're doing in that area, and that's what I was picturing was the Sons of Anarchy Mayans Meth Mountain in Southern California.
I just want to say real quick, I'm not using the term redneck to be as an insult or anything. These
No, I
people
don't think
self-identify. So you see people who actually like tattoo their necks red and shit. You know what I mean? Like they call them. You see stickers, redneck, proud of it. You see a lot of stickers that say, "I'm a redneck hippie." That's like a big thing. So like it's these people self-identify as redneck. I'm not being derogatory, and I have a big old pickup truck with a lumber rack and all that shit. So you gotta, if you live in the middle of the woods,
Yeah,
you have to,
It becomes natural.
part of life out there.
yeah, you wear logging boots and double knee work pants, all that shit.
Awesome. Now, before we wrap things up, because we're going on almost an hour here, so I don't want to take
Yes,
up too
sir.
much time. I know everybody's got shit to do, but it's time for the lightning level. I'll tell you how this works here in a second. But today's lightning level is going to be brought to you by High Level Hydro, supplying you with everything you need from seed to harvest.
Are you ready to level up your harvest? Look no further than High Level Hydro, Maryland's #1 seed and supply store. At High Level Hydro, we take you from seed to harvest with expert advice and top-notch products from AC Infinity, Mars Hydro, The Bucket Company, and more. Visit our website at highlevelhydro.com for a vast selection of premium seeds, cutting-edge grow supplies, and everything you need for a bountiful harvest. High Level Hydro, where success grows from seed to harvest. Your journey to superior yields starts now. Visit highlevelhydro.com or at High Level Hydro on your favorite social media.
So here's how it works. We're going to throw just a few questions at you, random questions, nothing hard, nothing that you really should have to think of, like really put your mind to, but just want quick answers, whatever, first thing that comes to the top of your head. All right, man? Ready? We'll see what happens, all right?
Let's get it.
Matthew, what is your favorite strain of all time? If you could have one strain to smoke the rest of it, what would it be?
OG Kush.
Solid choice. Who is your favorite superhero of all time?
Batman.
Okay.
Hey.
I'm not a big superhero guy, really. Oh, nice.
Batman chair.
Batman chair. I'm Batman.
What else you got? You got another one, Brian?
Yeah, what favorite movie of all time?
Requiem for a Dream.
Oh,
Okay,
I like
okay.
that.
It changes every 5 minutes, but
All right, man. And I'm going to hit you with the last one. The last question that I always ask everybody. What are your go-to munchies when you're high?
oh, shoot, I don't know. Goat cheese and crackers.
Goat cheese and crackers. Brian is
Good choice.
a
Sun
garden
chips.
salsa, sun
Yep.
chips, right?
Mm,
And I
salsa's
will
good.
say, I just picked some of those up at the store today because I saw them and I'm like, Brian talks about that. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna get some. So I
Dude,
got
they're
some
fucking
today.
delicious, bro.
So Matthew,
Telling
though,
you.
solid choices. Now, as we wind down, any final thoughts or any advice for our levelers out there?
Stay safe. Have fun. If you like true crime, check out my podcast. You like horror, read my books.
Solid advice, Matt. We appreciate you taking the time to share your experiences and insights with
Yeah, for
us
sure.
and our levelers today. Before we let you go, like you said, you mentioned your podcast. Where can the folks find out more about you, your writing, your Murder Coaster podcast? Where time to plug yourself, man? Where? Give us all the details.
My website is www.matthewvbrockmeyer.com. The Murder Coaster is www.murdercoasterpodcast.com. I'm on Facebook as Matthew Brockmeyer and the Humboldt Lycanthrope. The podcast is on Instagram and TikTok. Murder Coaster. You can't miss it. And
We'll
anywhere
make sure
you listen to podcasts, if you listen to podcasts, just type in Murder Coaster, pop right up.
Okay.
We'll make sure to list all those in our description for this one.
Thank you so much.
Matthew, thanks for joining us again. Brian, I'll tell you what, bro, this definitely one of our most interesting guests yet.
Yeah. I enjoyed this one a lot for sure.
It was my absolute pleasure,
Levelers.
guys. Thank you for having me.
Levelers, let us know what you thought of the episode. Remember, stay tuned. More dank content coming your way. For now, though,
Dang right.
I'm your host, Chris, alongside Brian. We'll catch you on the next episode of High Level Chronicles. Stay leveled up. We are out.
Thanks for listening to High Level Chronicles. See you next time.
Thank you again for listening to High Level Chronicles. Please help us grow by leaving us a review wherever you listen to us at, whether it's Spotify, iTunes, Alexa. Your reviews will help our show grow and help us reach a broader audience. Also, we are always looking for new show sponsors, so please reach out if you're interested. You can hit us on our social media or email us info@highlevelchronicles.com. Thanks again for listening.